What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Rogues Passage. I'm Tanner Cherry. I'm here to do another deck dive with you. I'm going to do one that I built recently and have had the pleasure of playing a few times now. Today we're building Leonardo da Vinci, or at least I'm going to show you how I built it. I'm sure you're here because you're curious how people are building this deck and, you know, whether it's poppin'. This deck, the first time I read this card, it didn't hit me how powerful this deck could be. Leonardo da Vinci is a 2 and a blue legendary creature human artificer, 3/3. Settle the debate on whether he can beat a grizzly bear to death with his bare hands. He's got a finisher ability for 3 blue until end of turn. Thopters you control have base power and toughness XX, where X is the number of cards in your hand. So there is going to be a suite of cards to refill cards in your hand and, you know, stuff to keep your cards in your hand, such as a Thought Vessel, stuff like that. But how are we activating the crazy parts of this deck? His tap ability, 2 and a blue to tap, draw a card, then discard a card. If the discarded card was an artifact, exile it from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's an O2 Thopter artifact creature with flying in addition to its other types. So what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be pitching some big, crazy, scary artifacts into exile and making bodies out of them. And it works. It's real fun. Let's get into it. Okay, let's switch over to the deck tech screen here. Our commander, Leonardo da Vinci. He's a 3-drop. He has a 3-mana activated ability to get the engine going and a 5-mana activated ability to finish it off. And we have, because he makes O2 Thopters, we have kind of a suite here. I'm going to start with the Anthem category. All these cards are going to make it a little easier for these Thopters to be more valuable rather than just O2 blockers kind of thing. So yeah, let's start with Banner of Kinship. It is a 5-mana artifact. As this artifact enters, choose a creature type, Thopter. This artifact enters with a fellowship counter on it for each creature you control of the chosen type, and it essentially does like a coat of arms, +1/+1 for each fellowship counter for each of those creatures. This is not a card you want to lead on. You want to do it kind of later on after you have a base of Thopters, but when you do, it's going to punch those numbers up, and Thopters hit pretty hard because, you know, I love decks that have air superiority. Second one here is Chief of the Foundry. Classic for your artifact decks. 3 mana, other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. A lot of these cards that I've got in here that are giving it even just the +1/+1, the Anthem effect, is because a lot of my draw suite is for these Thopters connecting, stuff like Biden of Thassa and Curiosity Crafter, stuff like that. So you'll see, I just want to have, how many do we got here? We got 10, 11, 12, 13 cards in the Anthem section just to punch them up a little. Coat of Arms, obviously, 5 mana. And the cool thing about, like, you can push your curve in this deck with higher mana artifact, or higher CMC artifact spells, because we know that we can just tap 3 and create a Thopter that has the abilities. It's really fun. This deck is super cool. Coat of Arms fits in here. Each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature in play of the same creature type. Now this card hits for the entire board. Everybody else, if you're playing against somebody else that has a deck built around a certain creature type, it's gonna buff them too, but hopefully you'll just have air superiority. You'll be able to finish it off. Favorable wins, 1 and a blue. Your flyers get +1/+1. Forsaken Monument. This card is a house in this deck. This one is one that I will tutor for if I can. It's a 5-mana legendary artifact. Colorless creatures you control get +2/+2. Whenever you tap a permanent for colorless, add an additional colorless. And whenever you cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life. So it just does a lot in the deck, and it's got really sick art. And speaking of really sick art, this one is part of the finisher package too. Graz Unstoppable Juggernaut. It is an 8-mana artifact creature, Juggernaut. Juggernauts you control attack each combat if able. Juggernauts you control can't be blocked by walls. Other creatures you control have base power and toughness 5/3 and are Juggernauts in addition to their other creature types. So it's going to take those O2 Thopters and turn them into base power 5/3, which changes the math drastically. Master of Ethereum, 2 and a blue. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifacts you control, and other artifact creatures get +1/+1. Metallic Mimic is 2 colorless. As this creature enters, you're going to choose Thopter. Those creatures are going to enter with an extra +1/+1 count. Obelisk of Erd, 6 mana. It has Convoke, but you're usually just going to cheat stuff like this in. 6 mana. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Those are going to get +2/+2. So Thopters are going to get buffed. Patchwork Banner, 3 mana. Enters the battlefield, choose Thopters. Those Thopters are going to get +1/+1, and it's a mana rock. Pretty sweet little card for this deck. Steel Overseer, absolute classic, 2 mana. Tap it to put a 1/1 counter on all the creatures you control, or artifact creatures you control. The Immortal Sun for 6 mana. Players can't activate Planeswalker's loyalty abilities. At the beginning of your draw step, you draw an additional card. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and creatures get +1/+1 that you control. So it just does everything you want in this. It may shut off a Planeswalker that you have out, but Unctist, Grand Metatect, 1 blue. Other blue creatures you control have, when this creature becomes tapped, draw and discard a card. You kind of get an extra draw and discard off of Leonardo da Vinci's ability, but it also has the bonus to give your other artifact creatures you control +1/+1. And then the Phyrexian blue mana here, until end of turn, target creature you control becomes a blue artifact in addition to its other colors and types. I don't know, I haven't really found a use for that in this deck, but if you see one, put it in the comments. So that is the 13 cards that kind of make sure that we've got some thickness on our Thopters. Next category is artifact payoffs. These are big things that we can just throw in with Da Vinci's ability and get extreme value off of. These are the fun things. This is the whole meat of the deck. Alphabetical order, we'll start off with Akroma's Memorial. For 7 mana, creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and pro black and red. Cards a house. Alhammerit's Archive for 5. If you would gain life, you gain twice that much life. If you would draw cards, you draw 2 instead, except for that first one you draw at the start of your turn. Nice card. Really good card for this deck. Auton Soldier, 4 blue. You may have Auton Soldier enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it isn't legendary. It is an artifact in addition to its other types and has Myriad. Myriad is a very, very good ability in Commander. Basically, if you copy a creature with this, whenever you attack an opponent with it, it's going to create a copy that's tapped and attacking each other opponent as well. So yeah, you're going to get a lot of value out of it. Chimil, the Inner Sun, 6 mana legendary artifact. Spells you control can't be countered, and at the beginning of your end step, discover 5. So you're just going to peel off the top of your library until you hit something that is CMC 5 or less, non-land card that can be cast, and you can either cast it right then or put it in your hand. Discover is a little bit of a fixed cascade, or a power crept cascade. It's wonderful. We got Cityscape Leveler, 8 mana artifact creature construct. Trample 8/8. When you cast this spell and whenever it attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Controller creates a tapped Power Stone token, and it has Unearth for 8. This one is nuts. I love the fact that you can just cheat out huge fatties in this deck so long as they're artifacts and they become Thopters. I absolutely love this card. It's a good removal spell in the deck. We got Darksteel Forge, 9 mana artifact. Artifacts you control have indestructible. Darksteel Monolith, 8 mana. It's indestructible. Once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a colorless spell you cast from your hand. It's going to make it so that we can kind of cheat things out of our hand as well. Karn, Legacy Reforged for 5. Karn, Legacy Reforged power and toughness are each equal to the greatest mana value among artifacts you control, which is actually, it's going to be interesting, right? If you make a Thopter out of these big fat artifacts, that's a 0 mana token. So if you can hard cast something big, you'll get some power and toughness value off this. But what we really want Karn for is at the beginning of your upkeep, you add colorless for each artifact you control, and this mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. Until end of turn, you don't lose mana. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. I haven't actually cast this card in this deck, but I assume that it's going to help make the engine turn. Master Transmuter, 3 and a blue. Artifact creature, human artificer, 1/2, blue and tap. Return an artifact you control to its owner's hand, and then you may put an artifact card from your hand on the battlefield. So just another way to cheat artifacts in. Nexus of Becoming is a 6 mana artifact. This is a cool little special guests version here from the big score. At the beginning of combat on your turn, draw a card. So you kind of get a second card draw each turn. And keep in mind that you want to be drawing as many cards as possible because Da Vinci's ability, his 5 mana ability is your Thopters get bigger depending on how many cards are in your hand. So you want to try and stack your hand as much as possible. So you draw a card at the beginning of combat on your turn, then you may exile an artifact or creature card from your hand. If you do, create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, except it's a 3/3 golem artifact creature in addition to its other types. So kind of just doing the same thing. Platinum Angel, have to have it. 7 mana fatty, artifact creature angel, 4/4 flyer. You can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. It works. It's right next to Platinum Empyrean as well. An 8 mana, 8/8. Your life total can't change. I mean, like, your Thopters can be unsummoned. They can be dealt with pretty easily, and then this original card is exiled, so it's got a release valve in regards to being too powerful. Portal to Phyrexia. This card is a little rude. I know that there was one game where I actually just kind of kept it in my mitt because I knew it would have just been a total dick move to play it. It's a 9 mana artifact that when it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacks 3 creatures. And then basically at the beginning of your upkeeps, you get to put one of those back onto the battlefield as a Phyrexian under your control. It's a sweet card, but if you're going to piss off the whole table, maybe don't play it. Oh, this one's really cool. Reaver Titan for 7 mana. It's an artifact vehicle from the Warhammer decks. It has an ability, Void Shields, protected from mana value 3 or less. It's a really cool ability. But the one that we're playing it for is the Gatling Blaster. Whenever Reaver Titan attacks, it deals 5 damage to each opponent. Now, it's a 10/10 for crew 4 as it is, but if it's a Thopter, it's going to be a 0/2 that's just always a creature. So every time that little Thopter attacks, you're going to be dealing 5 to each opponent, essentially doing 15 damage off of a 0/2 Thopter. It's pretty sweet. Research Thief, 4 and a blue, flash, flying, artifact creature, Moonfolk Wizard, 3/3. When an artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Now this, I tried to include as many of this effect as I could in the deck because we want each of these Thopters, whenever they connect, we want them to refill our hand, make it bigger. And the last time, you'll actually see the game that I played with this deck on the channel soon. I'll link it in the description of this video as well. I think I had 3/4 of my deck in my hand by the time I tried to swing for lethal, and I lost that game. So it's a heck of a game. Sharding Sphinx, 4 blue, artifact creature Sphinx, flying, 4/4. Whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you create a blue Thopter creature token with flying. So instead of drawing a card, you get another Thopter. Staff of Nin for 6. Beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card, an extra card, and it can tap to deal 1 damage to any target, which is helpful in a lot of little situations. Magic Mirror, I love this one. Legendary artifact, 6 blue. It's a 9 mana artifact. It graciously has you have no maximum hand size stapled on it, which you really need in this deck. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a knowledge counter on the Magic Mirror, then draw a card for each knowledge counter on the Magic Mirror. It's a heck of a card draw spell. Thought Monitor, 6 and a blue, affinity for artifacts. It's a 2/2 flying. I wish it was a Thopter. It says it's a construct. When it enters, it draws 2 cards. It's kind of like a Muldrifter, but you can get it in there pretty cheap. Ooh, this is a cool new card here. Marvin, Murderous Mimic, 2 mana, 2/2, artifact creature toy. This is in the copy category. Marvin, Murderous Mimic has all activated abilities of creatures you control that don't have the same name as this creature. So he's going to be a second Da Vinci. He's just going to be able to sit on the board and do whatever Da Vinci do. And I mean, like, that's impressive because that dude did a lot. World Waker Helm. This card is really, really cool in this deck. It's 2 and a blue artifact. If you would create 1 or more artifact tokens, instead create those tokens plus an additional map token. That's cool for your artifact count, but 1 and a blue and tap, create a token that's a copy of target artifact token you control. So we can copy the Thopters that we've made with this and get double the effect off of a lot of the really big kind of, it's if you want to copy your Platinum Angel and have a second one just in case or whatever, right? Fun card. Let's get into the draw section. We got Consecrated Sphinx, obviously. I think in the game that I played, that was the reason that 3/4 of my deck was in my hand. It's a heck of a card. 4 blue. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2, and it is a flying 4/6. Classic. If you play Commander, you know what this card is. Curiosity Crafter is from Commander 21. It is actually, I thought it was a little newer than that. 3 and a blue, flyer, 3/3. Gracious has you have no maximum hand size on it. You need as many of these effects as possible. Whenever a creature token, the Thopters, you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. It's just a beautiful, beautiful card. Rhystic Study here is a deck that needs to have cards in its hand, so we want to be filling throughout our opponent's turns with a Rhystic Study. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless they pay 1. We do have a Planeswalker here in Tezzeret, Artifice Master. 3 blue, legendary Planeswalker Tezzeret. He's got 5 loyalty coming in, +1 to create a Thopter, 0 mana to draw basically 2 cards. It says draw a card, but if you control 3 or more artifacts, draw 2 cards instead. You're almost always going to have that second clause attached and be able to draw 2 cards a turn off this. And -9, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, search your library for a permanent card and put it on the battlefield. It's just backbreaking. We got the One Ring in here. If you're going to play an artifact deck, you probably want the One Ring. And you want an artifact deck that wants to draw cards, get the artifact that draws cards. The One Ring, it's amazing. And, if you can get a hold of the serialized 1 of 1 to get in your deck, like I'd say try. Thopter Spy Network. 2 blue enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, which I'm sure you will, you create another Thopter. Whenever 1 or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. It just is wonderful. And I mean, man, I'm starting to realize I think I have a type. I think these kinds of cards right here are this is where I like to sit in Magic. All right. Let's talk about the land base. I don't know if I spent too much time putting this land base together. This is a mono blue deck. If you guys have any suggestions for the land base, I would love to hear them. Put them in the comments. We'll start it with Academy Ruins. Academy Ruins is a legendary land. It taps to add 1 colorless, or it's 1 and a blue and tap. Put target artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library. So a little bit of recursion. It lives in artifact blue decks. We've got Ancient Tomb. Add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. It deals 2 damage to you. Dark Steel Citadel. Indestructible. 24 islands. I tried to put everything old border as much as I could in this deck as possible because Da Vinci, he's from the way back when. Mystic Sanctuary. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other islands. When Mystic Sanctuary enters untapped, you may put target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library. We'll see. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it's a great thing to include in the deck. Otawara. This has an incredible channel ability that allows you to return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. Costs 1 less for each legendary creature you control. Great blue land. We got a Reliquary Tower, again, for the no maximum hand size. Seat of the Synod is an artifact land in blue. It's nice to have that for stuff that wants to care about artifact count. Urza's Saga, of course. Chapter 1, it gains tap for colorless. Chapter 2, it gains the ability to pay 2 and create a construct, which gets bigger for the amount of artifacts you control. And then when it pops on turn 3, search your library for an artifact card with mana value 0 or 1 and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. All right, this category is called More Thopters. Efficient construction is wonderful. It is 3 and a blue enchantment. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. It's going in the deck. And Psy Master Thopters does a similar thing. 2 and a blue. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a Thopter, but it also sacrifices 2 artifacts to draw a card. Kind of handy. It's not a tap ability. You can sort of do this in response to people trying to steal your artifacts too, which is kind of nice. All right, we got the protection package, Protect. We've got, I just can't stop putting this card in blue decks. It's just, the art is so good. What is the artist here? Miho Airi, just amazing. I want more cards like this. An offer you can't refuse. 1 blue, counter target non-creature spell, and they get 2 treasure tokens. If you're countering something really crazy, 2 treasure tokens is a wonderful consolation. It's a staple in blue decks of mine. I love it. Now, because we're playing a commander from the Assassin's Creed set, I really wanted to run this new card. It is called Desynchronization. 2 blue instant. Return each non-land permanent that's not historic to its owner's hand. So we might end up losing an enchantment or 2 or something, but I mean, our board's likely all going to be artifacts, legendaries, and stuff like that. So it's a really neat card. It's got really sick art. It's from Assassin's Creed. It's going in the deck. I put Lightning Greaves in, of course. Equipped creature has haste and shroud. This is something that if we have to cast our commander, not only can we protect it, but we can get that tap ability going on the first turn, or the turn that it comes back out again right away. Mana Drain is actually extra specially good in this deck because when you counter a spell and then you make all of that colorless mana on your next main phase, you can use all that colorless mana on artifacts in this deck. So it's an obvious counterspell inclusion. Padim, Console of Innovation. Artifacts you control have hexproof, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control the artifact with the highest mana value or tied for the highest mana value, draw a card. Good card. And then we got Pongify. It just destroy target creature and give him an ape. 3/3. And Swan Song, counter target enchantment, instant or sorcery spell. Its controller creates a 2/2 blue bird creature token with flying. That is our protection suite. All right, our next category is the ramp section. 12 of these in here. We have Arcane Signet, this beautiful Dan Fraser. I actually really regret not buying this Secret Lair when it came out, because now it's so much more expensive to get these. Arcane Signet, you know what this does. Ethereum Sculptor, 1 and a blue. Artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Boundary Inspector does the same thing. Mind Stone is 2 mana, add colorless, sack to draw a card. Omen Hawker's kind of cool. It's a 1 mana creature, 1/1. But it taps to add colorless and a blue. Spend this mana only to activate abilities. So that actually you can subsidize Da Vinci's tap ability with this Omen Hawker. It'll tap for 2. We've got Ornithopter of Paradise, 2 mana, flying 0/2. It is a Thopter, so it can swing in for lethal as well once you activate his ability. This taps for 1 mana of any color. Sapphire Medallion is going to make our blue spells cost 1 less. Soul Ring is going to tap for 2 colorless in case you've never read that card. The Enigma Jewel. This is another one that's kind of like the Omen Hawker up here. It's a 1 mana legendary artifact. It enters tapped, but it taps for 2 colorless to activate abilities. And the craft ability, I'm not even really interested, I don't think, in using that. We got a Thought Vessel, another gracious inclusion of no maximum hand size, and it taps for a colorless. Training Grounds, just another kind of redundant effect to make a Da Vinci's ability cost only 1 blue mana. It just takes the cost of activations 2 down. It can't be reduced to less than 1. And then of course, Daddy Urza, 2 blue. When he enters, he creates one of those constructs that's as big as the amount of artifacts you control. But then you can tap any untapped artifact you control to add blue. It turns all of your artifacts into Mox Sapphires. And he's got a 5 colorless ability of shuffle your library, exile the top card. Until end of turn, you can play that card without paying for it. So, sweet card. The next category is the tutor category. Now, Arkham Dagson is a very powerful card, especially in this deck. It might get you hated off the table, but it's in the deck just because it performs. 3 and a blue. He's a legendary human artificer. He has a tap ability. He's a 2/2. Has a tap ability to target artifact creature's controller, sacrifices it. That player may search the library for a non-creature artifact artifact card, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle your library. So you can just turn whatever artifact you have into almost whatever other artifact you have in your deck. I just can't get creature ones. Loyal Inventor, 2 and a blue. Creature Human Artificer, 2/3. He's got Vigilance, and whenever he enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, then shuffle, put that card into your hand if you control an assassin. Otherwise, put that card on top of your library. Now, we are not concerned about controlling an assassin or not, because if he puts it right on top of the library, Da Vinci's ability still draws first and then can discard. So we tutor with this, put whatever artifact from the deck that we want to use for his ability, put it on top of the deck, use his ability to tap it, exile it, put it into play as a Thopter. Treasure Mage plays a similar trick. 2 and a blue, Human Wizard, 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost 6 or greater, reveal it, put it in your hand. So we can go grab whatever we need, you know? We are playing Freed from the Real in the untapped section, but we're not doing any crazy like infinite shenanigans with it. I didn't want to build this deck to just pop off and go infinite. I just wanted to do it like kind of like an Eldrazi deck where you just want to cheat in the big, oppressive, crazy, cool, nutso cards that Magic has printed. Yeah, but Freed from the Real is a 3 mana enchant creature, and then you can tap and untap for a blue. We can just attach that to Da Vinci and untap them, just use them again. 1,000-Year Elixir is another untap synergy card. It is a 3 colorless artifact. You may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste, so it does kind of a nice service to us if we have to recast our commander. And then it's 1 untap to untap Da Vinci. And then we also have Vizier of Tumbling Sands, 2 and a blue. Taps to untap another target permanent. And when you cycle it, it also untaps target permanent. So it is, it's just another way to rebuy Da Vinci's effect. We got the Maybe board down here too. These are cards that were at one point in the deck, but I guess didn't make it into the final list. Let's go over them, I guess. We got the Cybermen Squadron, 7 mana, 5/5 artifact creature Cyberman from the Doctor Who set. Non-legendary artifact creatures you control have Myriad. We talked about this before. All of our artifact Thopters are going to, I guess, have Myriad. It's going to create 3 more copies of them when they attack one of your opponents. And it gives all of your non-legendary artifact creatures that ability. I have not played with this. I think maybe I should shove this back in the deck just for the explosiveness of it, but we'll see how it works. Fabricate, 2 and a blue, sorcery. Search your library for an artifact, put it in your hand. That is another kind of redundant effect for the tutor category there. Kappa Cannoneer. I do really want to play with this card. I can't remember why I took it out or what I put in its place, but it is in the maybe board here because I think I still want to have it close to the deck for days that I want to play with it. 5 and a blue, but it has improvise. You can tap artifacts to pay for that cost. It has ward 4, so very annoying. Whenever Kappa Cannoneer or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Kappa Cannoneer, and it can't be blocked this turn. So it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. Every single time an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it's unblockable. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm stupid for taking this out. This is definitely a card that you want in and around this deck. Liberator, Urza's Battle Thopter for 3 mana. This is a legendary Thopter. Flash flying, 1/2. You may cast colorless spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast that spell is greater than Battle Thopter's power, put a 1/1 counter on it. It's a cool card, and it's a Thopter. So just having a decent amount of Thopters on the board is the way that you're going to be able to set yourself up to close things out with giant Thopters. I think in the recorded game that we put up, I think I swung in for each of them were +40/+40 or whatever. You can kind of just send 1 in each direction. Mechanized Production, 2 blue, enchantment aura. You enchant an artifact you control, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you essentially create another copy of it. And if you control 8 or more of the artifacts with the same name, you win the game. So I've never actually gotten there with that, but it's definitely fun. If you have treasure decks, it's really good to put on treasures and see if you can just win the game off of how rich you are. Meteor Golem is just vegetables for an artifact deck like this. It's just eating your vegetables. It's 7 mana, 3/3. When it enters, destroy target non-land permanent opponent controls. Spine of Ish-Sa is a 7 mana artifact that when it enters, destroy target permanent. When it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return it to its owner hand. So yeah, pretty cool card. Teferi's Ageless Insight. This was in the initial build just because you want to be drawing a lot of cards, and I think it came out because my draw package was already pretty robust. So it's 2 blue. If you would draw a card, except the first one you draw in each of your draw steps, draw 2 instead. And then Vidalcan Archmage, 2 blue. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, draw a card. What does Da Vinci say here? Da Vinci says draw and discard. If the discarded card was an artifact card, exile it from your graveyard. If you do, create a token. So you're not casting it. I think I ended up taking out the Vidalcan Archmage because I didn't know how many of my cool artifact spells I was just going to be casting. But anyway, it's in the maybe board. Could be really good. Ooh, and quick edit live. Actually, shout out to Brady Magpie. He sent me in a message here. This is from the new Aether Drift commander sets. This one's in the maybe board right now in my list here, but By the time you hit the deck list, I'm going to have found a way to put this in because it's got to be in the deck. It's a 3 mana artifact creature construct, 1/4. Thopters you control get +1/+1. And if one or more artifact tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus another Thopter are created instead. So every time we do the trick, we get 2 Thopters instead of 1. This one's got to go in the deck. Great new inclusion. I believe there is, oh, you know what? I got one more that I want to add just at the last minute here. All right, I'll figure out what I got to cut after this, but I know from Aether Drift here, we've got Unstoppable Plan, and this card is going to live in this deck for sure. 2 and a blue. At the beginning of your end step, untap all non-land permanents you control. So not only are we untapping our Da Vinci to do another trick, to be able to get something else in, but we're untapping all the Thopters and remaining superior in the air. So yeah, I'll figure out what else I got to cut for this. You will see the deck list in the comments of this video. Follow along with me as this deck evolves. I've played it a few times. I want to play it more. Every time I sit down, I want to play this deck first. It's really fun, and I haven't actually had a mono blue commander deck that I've really enjoyed like this. So I highly recommend building the deck. Also, please, please, please let me know in the comments what you suggest, what you think that's in here that's garbage, and what you would run instead. I'd love to take suggestions and have the deck evolve. So, all right, let me know in the comments, please, what you think, how you would build it, how you would change it, as I said. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. If you want to check out the gameplay episode that this was recently featured in, I'm sure by the time it goes live on our channel, I will have the link in the description of this. If you want to check out our merch, all of our other socials, anything else we do, the link tree is always in the description of our videos. Yeah, have a great day. Thanks for coming to the Rogue's Passage. Bye.